What is, for you, the most important part of a story? Is it characters? Or themes? Or maybe the narrative and plot? The answer will vary from person to person. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Oh god, starting strong. In any case, for me, the most important aspects of any given story are honesty and passion. That might sound a bit very wishy-washy, but I promise it makes sense. When a story is honest, both with itself and with the viewers, and when the very real passions of the very real person behind the pen begin to shine through that story, that's when it truly grips me. MHA's unapologetic and honest optimism and positive reinforcement, or Vento Aureo's reflection of Araki's obsession and passion with Italy, are very good examples of that. And when an author can properly channel these two feelings into his work, I, personally, find that way more relevant than all the technical stuff I mentioned before. Obviously it's important, but for me, passion and honesty are what really sell me on things. With that said, let's talk about Toriko, and why you should read it. The 2008 battle shonen manga Toriko by Mitsutoshi Shimabukuro is in many ways a bit of a weird case. If you ask Mr. Manga Fan about it, the usual reaction will either revolve around the blue-haired bloke in that One Piece crossover, or that Toei anime that flopped. And sure enough, those are both Toriko. However, limiting your perception of this somewhat obscure series to these incidental expositions would be what we in the business call a fucking shame. Because if you go to the series' roots, the manga, and read the source material, you will be rewarded with one of the most fun, engaging, and passionate manga experiences you can find in Weekly Shonen Jump. And that's exactly what I want to sell you on today. Big promises, I know. So, what is Toriko about? Well, it's about Toriko. Man, just killing it with my descriptions today, aren't I? Oh my god. Okay, let's try this again. The manga follows the adventures of Toriko, a powerful yet kind young man who loves nothing more than good food. And he is not alone in that. The world the story presents is one where global political, societal, and economical structures have shifted their focus onto what is called the Gourmet Age, an era in which enthusiasm for delicious food has become the primary driving force for many people as a response to a constant stream of newly discovered delicious ingredients in the vast world of Toriko. However, as the world yearns for newer, more exotic tastes, procuring those tastes becomes increasingly dangerous for the average man, since they have to venture into remote corners of the world, usually guarded by ferocious beasts. Thus, a new profession arises: the gourmet hunter. Brave men and women who, usually armed with superhuman abilities or just straight up superpowers, venture out to retrieve and discover the rarest and most elusive ingredients in the world. And our protagonist, Toriko, just happens to be one of the more famous of these gourmet hunters. The story follows his various contracts and missions, where he clashes both with ferocious beasts and rival hunter groups, all in the pursuit of fine and exquisite meals and ingredients to add to his full course menu, a list of 8 incredible dishes combined into one sequence of ingredients and meals that form the ultimate meal for him. It's basically his One Piece or his Hokage. It's his big goal that he needs to achieve to be happy. That might be a bit much to take in all at once, but luckily, one of Toriko's strengths as a series is that it eases you into its world and lets you discover it as you go along. In fact, the story starts out deceptively simple. Small boy, big boy, Croc, go kill Croc, go eat Croc, bam, done. However, once this simple beginning has played out and the reader has gotten to know the general gist of how the story works, with a new ingredient being presented and Toriko going out to hunt, the author lifts the curtain and properly begins to flesh out the world he created. And the world of Toriko is the first thing I would like to focus on. It takes a very similar form to ours, with technology, politics, norms, and a general look somewhat comparable to ours, albeit more advanced. However, one key difference here is that Toriko Earth is more than 600 times larger than our world. And all that extra space is filled with incredibly varied, bizarre, perilous, and sometimes downright mystic ecosystems that all follow their own rules and contain their own natural orders. And while that is something you can say about a lot of fictional places, Toriko goes the extra mile and introduces some of the passion I mentioned earlier. Shimabukuro goes into delightful detail on how these places and the species within interact with each other and even how they work on a biological level, without ever getting too complicated for your average reader. It never feels overwhelming, and rather it evokes this impression that these pages are the author's way of sharing his very real and very passionate enthusiasm about these subjects, and it makes finding out new things about creatures, locations, plants, etc. become an incredibly delightful and satisfying experience. It genuinely feels like each and every new location is filled with countless critters to discover, some through the story itself, some through background info, and some through the info pages included with each volume. So on the micro scale, we already have a very strong package for this world, because if the world building works on a micro scale, you already have a pretty good foundation. But it's as we go into the macro scale and transition into the actual world building itself, where it really comes together. That enthusiasm for food I mentioned earlier, yeah, that isn't just a one-off plot device to set the story in motion, nor is it just a cheap quirk. Rather, every part and aspect of Toriko's world gets both directly and indirectly influenced by this gourmet age. Politics, society, economy, entertainment, business, every facet of living in this world is influenced and touched by a unanimous focus on food, taste, and eating. For example, when an infamous criminal known for having eaten 26 species to extinction gets released from prison, the world's stock market crashes in an anticipatory panic regarding which gourmet ingredient will go extinct next. Stuff like this is great because it thoroughly reinforces the idea that this obsession with food, which is the series' very identity, has pervaded every single part of living in this world. This goes as far as to have entire cultures, religions, and philosophical doctrines develop all across the world that are all dedicated to examining what eating and food actually mean to the human experience. Sharing food, honoring food, savoring food. In a world where the idea of gourmet eating has become so excessively abundant, naturally there would be societal groups that would have to confront the idea of what this means for the idea of being human. So having essentially various schools of thought pop up and try to figure out how to deal with this change in the world on a philosophical and ideological level is not only incredibly realistic, but also an amazingly fresh take on the many outlooks humans can have upon their existence. Many stories ponder about war, about love, conflict, destruction, creation. But Toriko is one of the few to acknowledge, both in its world and story, just how important food is to us humans and how thinking about it in different ways can change our perspectives greatly. That shit literally keeps us alive. And all of these aspects give Toriko's world this palpable sense of identity and consistency, like this is a world that actually exists and actually went through all the changes it depicts, and it actually still goes through all the natural consequences of such a change in its world, be it in society or economy. However, a world is only as good as the stories and characters that inhabit it. Luckily, Toriko has got you covered. The characters of Toriko fall into the JoJo-esque category of personalities, meaning that they are often exaggerated, incredibly expressive, and sometimes downright goofy. They also, just like JoJo characters, quite often might mistakenly get assumed to be rather one-dimensional at first glance, even though many of them belie a great amount of depth. However, where the JoJo comparison stops is in how that depth is actually executed. Whereas in JoJo, most of the depth is quite subtle and at times a bit obscure, Toriko goes for a more direct route and works the more nuanced aspects of certain characters directly into the events of the story. That approach has many benefits because it lets you experience a character in a very close manner and allows you to gradually peel away their layers, like gradually getting to know someone new. A great example of this is Komatsu and his development. Introduced as a seemingly wimpy and weak cook that joins Toriko on his adventures, he starts out looking little more than just a mere sidekick. However, as we spend more time with him, we begin realizing that behind the meek appearance and scared behavior lies a real passion and devotion to his skill as a cook, as well as a warm, brave, and kind personality that quickly rubs off on everyone around him and makes him eventually the secondary protagonist. Not only that, but this kind and thoughtful nature is used exquisitely to highlight and examine and also motivate our actual protagonist, Toriko, and his many quirks. And through this relationship they form, the physically strong Toriko and the brave and kind Komatsu, we not only get incredibly nuanced perspectives into both characters via their interactions, but also witness both of them grow and change alongside each other and also react to each other's changes, like, well, real friends. And this is just one relationship of just two characters. The story is filled with interesting, quirky, and just plain cool characters that, for the most part, bring with them intriguing motivations, enticing personalities, and, of course, fun and original special powers, because it's a battle shonen, we need to have our special powers. Those powers can range from something as simple as pyrokinesis to literally being able to manipulate the laws of quantum physics. What? This is just another way the characters are made unique and memorable. And not only are they conceptually excellent, but the characters also get used in really creative ways throughout the story, being often grouped and regrouped with different people so that we continuously get fresh perspectives and learn new things about them. This forms a good deal of attachment to these characters, which can then be used to great effect, be it fun, epic, heartwarming, or tragic. This would be the part where I would list the negatives about the series I'm recommending, and sure enough, Toriko has those. However, they are mostly due to external factors as opposed to internal ones. While Toriko for the most part is excellent and paced very well, towards the end it can feel a slight bit rushed, and that is because, well, it was. After approximately 7 years of publication, the sales began to dip and the series was finished in a way that is generally seen as premature. The actual ending is actually pretty cool and a sweet send-off to this wonderful story. However, the events leading up to that ending can, at worst, feel a bit fast and overwhelming, which is a direct consequence of the premature conclusion. The final arc in particular has a lot of things happening very quickly, and it can feel like the author is just trying to get to the end very fast. But overall, it didn't impact my experience too much, but you have to choose for yourself. I still think the ending works perfectly fine for a series as is. Also, don't watch the anime. It doesn't do the series justice and was horribly mismanaged. It ran on Toei Animation back when they had the worst issues, and it was horribly produced, badly advertised. They censored all the bullshit because they had to show it on Sunday mornings. Even if you don't like reading, just don't watch the anime. Just read the fucking manga, man. You can do it. I believe in you. So yeah, just read the fucking manga. Before I end this, I want to talk about what really sold me on Toriko though. All these technical aspects are of course excellent and should already be plenty of motivation to go check it out. In fact, please do check it out. But to go back to what I said at the beginning, what really matters to me about a series are passion and honesty. And Toriko just has so much of it. Be it in the lovingly detailed depictions of biology and ecology, the varied and distinctively different takes on what it means to eat, or the very real and very endearing characters, there's always this feeling that Shimabukuro wants to tell us, the readers, about stuff he genuinely enjoys and thinks about a lot. The characters make mistakes, they laugh, cry, scream, they share food and joy, they live and they die, and it all just feels like such a real and genuine portrayal, not only of the themes of the story, but also of just being human in general. There is a certain degree of humanity to this story that is quite difficult to grasp in words. You really just need to experience it. The best way I can describe it is that Shimabukuro's passion for what he's writing is written into the story, and it's an integral part of the very fabric of this manga. And that is what gives this series its heart. That's why I fell in love with it. No matter how great it is on a technical and structural level, what will always get me is an author pouring his very real ideas, passions, and feelings into a story and letting us see the world and humanity through various different lenses and rethink previously mundane seeming aspects of our lives, such as food and eating. I will always appreciate a series that makes me remember every time I open the booklet that there's a real human behind these pages. Because at the end of the day, sharing your feelings, your journeys, your stories, and yes, even your food is what makes fiction, writing, reading, and life worth it to me, and maybe even to you. So, as we part ways, all I have to say is bon appetit, be safe, and read Toriko.